please. Dear God, we just ask you to calm us, God, and to help us to speak clearly, that our words show the what you sent us out to do and how you worked. How you worked in our lives while we were there. And so we just ask your help and peace on us in Jesus' name. So we have a few pictures, I think. All right. Yeah, you can just put them up. So anyways, this is our group that we worked with in Veritas. We went to a retreat just a few weeks after we got there, so we were blessed to be able to be with all of our co-workers at the center.
This is the group we worked with our first year here, too.
Yeah. So a lovely, lovely group of people. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. All right. So do you have to click everyone, David? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So this is Veritas, the organization that we worked with. They took us on their retreat. They usually go on a retreat every year. And so this year they asked us to come along with them. And it was a great time. So we had worked with this group last year as well. And so this year we just were there just, 2 weeks or whatever. And they're like, hey, you're coming with us. So it was wonderful for them to feel that we're part of them that much, that they would invite us along with them. So, all right. Oh, sorry. This is Casey Bloom, who is, I'm sorry. Whoops. I don't know how to work this. So anyways, Casey is the one that we had offered the Children for Children, that we had given her the money for that, because Casey is from the U.S. and she is magnificent with those children. And this young boy that is with her in the center with the ponytail on the top, she's taken him on as hers, and she is working towards building him up to be a leader, to be confident in himself, and teaching him about Jesus and what he's done for them. So he's just a boy that he's kind of lost in the shuffle. He lives with his aunt. His parents have whatever, they're not there, and so he's with his aunt and uncle. He goes from them, he goes to his grandparents, so he doesn't have stability, but he's got Casey, who is teaching him and comforting him. So
we had looked around to see what we would do with this money that the Kids for Kids had donated, and we kind of looked around for a while, and Casey was the one that we thought, she's there for long term. She's been there for 2 years and then plans on being there much longer. So she's doing wonderful work with the children, and we thought she had just come back from the U.S. doing fundraising, had fallen a little short. So we thought that's an effective way to use this money, that it's going to impact children down the road. And so, a wonderful young woman. I don't know, do we have a map of Romania, Keith? Okay, so this is the country of Romania. Below it we have Bulgaria. On the far side down below, what used to be Yugoslavia, now it's Serbia and Bosnia, Kosovo, Croatia, and then down even further. There we go. All right. So pretty well just below the A is in the Romania, that is where we live, in a place called Sighișoara. So it's pretty well smack in the middle of the country. It's in the area known as Transylvania. It is beautiful. There are mountains, there are forests, there are castles, and there's also devastating poverty. and we'll get a little more into that. But I just to see where we are. So yeah, pretty well right below that center A is where we are located.
Mirish, which is just above that dot there, it is, there's Sigishwara.
There's Sigishwara. You can just see it by the Transylvania. So that is our hometown, and we have worked in areas around there. Cebu would be another area we have worked in that I'll get to in just a minute. But so that's just kind of where we are. And one of the things, too, in that area, up until 1918, it was part of Hungary. So there are a lot of Hungarian people, there are Romanian people. For over 800 years, the Saxon Germans had lived there, and actually most of the towns in that area are Germanic towns. There's not too many of them left. After the communism, Ceausescu fell in 1989, a lot of the Germans exodus to Germany because they were given citizenship and jobs and care, but there are still some that have stayed, but not a lot. So they have abandoned these beautiful homes, and a lot of the Romanians just moved right into them. So you see very much a clash of cultures and architects, and it also has its problems because there's rivalry, like Quebec and English Canada, little things like that. But where we work in the Veritas organization, it is made up of Romanians, Hungarians, and Roma, Gypsy people, and they all, having a heart for God, they work together, and they are working with the Roma, the Gypsy children, and Gypsy families. So that's heartening to see. The main culture that we are working with, though, is the Gypsies, and so that's a completely different category on its own. They're not well loved. They're persecuted. Some would say justifiably so. It is a hard culture. It is an evil culture. All cultures are evil and need to be redeemed by Christ, but I think when you go into the Gypsy culture and are trying to bring the light of Christ to it and do anything with it, you are dealing on an unprecedented scale of child abuse, incest, rape, violence, murder, and you look and you go in, and sometimes you leave and you just think, what have I just been through? And sometimes I go home, and I imagine Velda does too, go home and not just to have a shower to take the physical dirt off, but to take the spiritual dirt off, because it's ugly. It's very ugly. But every time I went out there, and I couldn't wait to get in amongst them again, I fell more and more in love with them. Every set of eyes I looked into, and I said, these are people are needing of Jesus Christ. Now, a lot of it we see the children, and they're, cute. Children are cute, and they are. And this here is Velda singing a song. Now, this is, of course, is a separate location. This isn't where we normally worked. Perhaps you'd like to explain this one? Okay. This is a place called Dallas, not Dallas, Texas. We don't have any of the Ewings there, but it was a little encampment that just grew up outside of a place called Cebu, which is actually 2 hours away from us. And we got familiar with Cebu our first term there and started working with a doctor from the U.S. Now, here's a doctor who has given up his practice to come do this. And anyways, the woman standing with the white pants on and the striped sweater, she is the mother of all these children. And I think there's a couple more.
She has 8 children.
Yeah, around. She, we came here to do some house repair on her. She is a Christian. She had another child, but there was a house fire, and the child burnt to death. And another brother, Sebi, he was called, he was badly burnt but survived. And she actually took him to beg everywhere because people would be more inclined to give him money. He's got all the burn scars and that. But they were a lovely, lovely family, and it was such a pleasure to get to meet them. The little girl just off on the left, she would be the oldest sister, but she can't go to school because she has to stay home with the other children while the mother goes out to panhandle and beg. So her future's not too bright either. Without an education, even a primary education, she'll probably lead into prostitution or begging. So this is what a lot of these children have to face. But yeah, but there was a lot of joy being there with them. And Velda's actually singing how big and how strong our God is to them. And they joined in. So, it's good to be there amidst the horror of it, because that's where Jesus Christ needs to be. But just kind of to give a short recap of our first trip there in 2015, of course, we found Veritas. That became our first home, and that automatically led us to a place to live.
Sorry. He did do a little schedule of he will talk, I will talk.
Mine?
You said 2000, recap of 2000.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so we found Veritas, which was fantastic. Because finding Veritas meant, we showed up at the House on the Rock. We told them we're wanting to do anything. Give us a thing to do and we'll do it. And so then they said, okay, you need to talk to Dorothy. Dorothy took us to the house to Veritas. We met Petra. Petra said, what will keep you here? And we said, we need a house to live in and we need something to do. And she went to the phone, she came back and she goes, I have an apartment you can look at 3 o'clock, and took us to another room which is full, almost to the ceiling, with banana boxes full of clothing that needed to be moved. She said, there's something to do. So God used us. And that's what we prayed for every day, was God, make us useful. Just take us out and make us useful. And he certainly did.
You do.
This is Shane. Yeah, Shane in the back corner there. These are the special needs at Veritas, who we are absolutely in love with. Absolutely in love with. Sorry. When we were leaving, Kara, the one here hugging Deanna, here she has a stocking cap on. Deanna has a stocking cap on, and Kara's holding her. And so Kara's saying, Velda and Shane are going back to Canada because we've had a new baby, or grandchild. So we need to go home and see our family. And so all of them special needs, they're all going, well, just bring your family here so you can stay, So it's just such a mind-blowing, that they love us and they want us there. We love them and we want to be with them also. So Shane gets to go and he exercises with them. He goes out on walks. he goes on walks. He just loves them, and and they love him back.
It was Rebecca, the girl on the end. She was actually raised up in the Veritas program, so this is progress. And now she works with them, but this was her retirement. She's retiring at 25. She was going to Germany to work, so this was a get-together to say goodbye to her. So we'll miss her when we go back. But she actually was a result of being brought up in Veritas and in the success story. So.
Yeah, so this is us, so we got our house, we got our something to do. And then they put us right into Romanian lessons. So we started taking classes of learning the language. And Bună dimineața is good morning. Eu casa is my home. And so the people we met and the other ministries, because we were willing to do whatever, we got to be involved with people from Northern Ireland because we just said, I can go, I can lift, whatever you need, we're willing. And so we got to work with the people from Northern Ireland. We got to work with people from Holland, from, where else, Shane? Scotland. Like these people we get to have lunch with people from Germany and from the U.S. and just, it's this little town is just so multicultural, and people that are there and working and wanting to be servants of God. So it's wonderful to have your life surrounded with it, wherever you are, and all working for one God, regardless what denomination you're involved with or you're sent there by, you're working for God. So then we were going to the Nazarene Church. That's where because that's Veritas is a product of the Nazarene Church of Dorothy's. So we had been going there, and then the people that we were working with from Northern Ireland and from Scotland and such, they were also going to the Manna Church. So we started getting involved with the Manna Church also, and then what else was it, Shane? Yeah. So this year, do you mind? We decided that because we did so much work with the people from the Manna Church that we would start attending the Manna Church. And going there, we met Pilu and Adasa, and they are amazing. Hadassah had a heart for the orphans, so she was going out into the orphanages. And she decided that she needed to do more than just go out, that she needed to get more involved with these children's lives. And so she started a foster home where she could take children from the big institution and bring them into a home. So 3 years ago, they were able to take in, she went from having one child to having 7 children. She got 5 foster children, and then they also adopted one of the girls as their own. So they are amazing. And so we were blessed to be able to help out in this foster home also. So they would allow us to go and stay at the foster home with these 5 fantastic teenagers. We got to have, 2 nights a week, we got to stay at their home. These children are amazing. They have a beautiful home, which they worked very hard, like what's the outreach,
Crown Foundation.
Crown Foundation. They were able to raise and get this beautiful home and redo it, do it. And these children are so appreciative of that they do all the housework. Their house is immaculate. They have a chart. Of course, they're teenagers. They fight it, but they do it. They know that they appreciate what they've been given, and they know it came from God, and they appreciate it so much that they do their work for it. They have to keep a very high standard in their homework, like in their schoolwork also. So these kids, they keep their house immaculate. They get their studies done because they want to do the best they can to get to the best high school. And they do it. And they do it lovingly, and they show us such great joy. You know, like they all take an instrument. They all do sports there. You know, like they're just fantastic kids and understand what an opportunity they have, you know, that's been given to them. So, sorry, I need to give it back. Sorry. Oh, this is Casey. This is the kids club group that is at Veritas. So there's Casey and a couple of leaders. There's one of the girls over on the far right with the scarf around her neck beside Alina is an American student that came for, they're there for 3 months. So they'll go and they just get involved with they get involved with Veritas and do all kinds of social aspects of the situation, of the center. So, sorry, go ahead.
And one of the things with the Veritas workers, a lot of them are psychologists and social workers, and they probably make work for this organization making less money than a hotel clerk would. Mm-hmm. But they do it out of love, and that they could go places and make more money. They could work anywhere in the world, actually, because they have such high degrees, but they work here for what we would call minimum wage, and it's quite a thing. Of course, one of the things this year was we needed to get our temporary visa permits, which we did through Veritas as a volunteer visa. So it's actually good till November 9th, but when we go back, our passports will actually last longer for the 90 days. But one of the things is you can only get a volunteer visa once in Romania. It doesn't matter if you go to another organization and volunteer, you can only get a volunteer visa once. So now we could have went through, it was kind of offered us through the Nazarene Church, and now it is being offered us through the Manna Church, which I feel more comfortable with. We'll be able to apply for a religious visa when we go back, but that has to go through quite a more routes. It has to go up into the Ministry of Cults and Religions in Bucharest and that. So it is more of a procedure, but on getting one, they're good for 2 to 5 years, and you can keep renewing them. And so that's definitely been a blessing that we have been given that. And one of the things that I was a little worried about and with the church, going through the Church of the Nazarene, is they have a manual that is almost as thick as the Bible when it comes to rules and regulations. So I had a few questions that I wasn't too comfortable with that. But then with the Manna Church, when I sat down with Pilu, he's the head minister, and David McGuire, he's one of the elders, was what freedom does that give me to do gospel preaching where I see in that? And they said, complete freedom. Follow Jesus, we give you the freedom to preach the gospel. So that was very reassuring for me, because I do not want us to have something that we feel we have to be committed to, but yet we're not comfortable with. So as long as we're preaching Jesus, as long as we have Scripture as authority, we are free to do it. So, which leads into, when we do go back, we intend to still be temporary, partially involved with Veritas because that's a family to us, partially involved with the foster home, but definitely moving more into working in the Roma settlements because that's where our heart is, and moving just beyond just the humanitarian thing, because everything that is done with humanity, when we go out with humanitarian, it is always gospel-based. It is always gospel preached. When we do the shoe boxes, the gospel is preached. When we build a home, when we do repair a home, the gospel is preached. That is always a criteria of it. And so with God's help, and my brain seems to expand it more this year than last year, I believe by the end of next term that our Romanian will be well enough that we will be able to, if necessary, branch out on our own to do gospel-based things in areas where other churches may not have touched yet. Now, one of the exciting things for me this year was meeting a German called Hans, who's actually this much taller than me. And he's actually a friend of Petra, who runs the center that we work at. He's a psychologist, but he was an elder at the Manna Church, but he has the same heart that I have for doing house churches. And so one of the projects we started this year is we planted a house church. Now, it was very exciting, but in the end, I backed out because some of the people who were getting in were not that well with English and were new Christians or had just become Christians or weren't Christians. And so I didn't want to be a handicap to it with them having to distract from teaching and bringing them up and having to have me in the conversation loop. I could understand some of it, but not enough. And so I felt very strongly that Velda and I should probably just let Hans take this for now until it gets built up, until we get better in the language. But yet through this, Hans and I have become mentors for each other. We have both taken each other through our difficulties, and I've been blessed by knowing him. And then through him, the night before we left, I met a German man that he had met from Germany, came, and who has been responsible for planting over 800 house churches across Europe and into Eastern Europe. So one of the projects we're going to be on when I go back that I'm really looking forward to is I will be traveling with those two gentlemen into Moldova and the Ukraine to do house church planting, and I'm really excited about that. And that's really, really has God's peace just resting on me with that. And I'm looking forward to that, and I hope Velda is too, but I am. And with that too, Velda actually came across a friend she met on the street. And this is the interesting thing. It's like here we walk everywhere, and people know us. We don't know them, but they know us, and people come up and talk to us here all the time. And there it was the same. We got to know so many people in this town and in this community that they would go out of their way to come talk to us. And through this, Velda, I'll let her explain.
No, again. So I was walking down the street one day, and this lady came over, and she said to me, I know you. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah. She said, I think you're like me. I think you're a lover. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you're a lover of God like I am. And I was like, yes, I am. And so she said, I know this gentleman that needs some help. She said, I've been going to him and feeding him regularly, taking him food. And she said, but he has a disability. He's lost a leg, and he is in a wheelchair. And So she said, would you come and see what you can do to help him out? And I said, of course I would, And so with her schedule and my schedule, trying to get a day that we could go, we finally did. And we went to this house, and I had never seen anything like it in my life. Even going into the gypsy villages, I've never seen anything this poorly kept. And this man was living there. So I said, yes, we will come in and we will clean his apartment. We will get him cleaned up. We'll do what we can to help him out. And so just meeting Lucy on the street and going into this man's apartment, I thought, I better find out more on what I could, or if anybody else has ever helped this gentleman. So I went to the Montague Church and spoke with the leaders there, and I asked them, does anybody know this gentleman? And they said, nope, we've never done, helped him. And so I said, okay, let's do so. What can we do for him? And they're like, oh, well, we'll do this. We set it all up right there on the spot. It's like, okay, we're going to get this done. But first I need to have somebody to come with me, because Lucy couldn't speak very good English, and she would talk to the man. She would get the question that I asked to him, but then she would not give me the answers. So I felt I needed somebody to come with us that would speak Romanian and speak English clearly, so that to get it back to me what was happening with him. So Liviu said that he would come with me. And so him and I went to the gentleman's house, and I took him in, showed him we asked the gentleman if we could go to his apartment. He said yes, so we went down to his apartment, and Liviu, he's like, yep, we need to help this man. But he said, first we have to find out some more information about him. So it ends up that the neighbors all wanted him to get help. There has been lots of help offered to this gentleman. He has a son that lives with him. He has a disability pension. He's got more money than us, and he chooses to live this way. So Liviu said, he has a son that comes home from Germany and cleans his apartment, and he just chooses to live this way. So he said, you know what, there's people out there that really appreciate when they're helped. So he said, this man, we can't do it, because it's his choice. And unfortunately, but Lucy, the darling, she still goes with food with him every day, or every couple days she drops food off. Thank you. So, yeah, but Lucy and I have become very good friends, and we hope to build a relationship to go out and help others that are wanting and need our help, that don't just sit and not help themselves at all, or need the help. Anyways.
And I guess just the last thing, as you recall, we had some prayer requests about going into Serbia to work with some refugees, and we prayed about it, and I think it was because one of the things is it was coming near the end before we came home, and it just, should we do this? We knew we couldn't go for long, and then we were looking at the expense. Not that things are expensive in Eastern Europe, but still, just to go for a few days was going to cost us what we live on a month over there. We realized with the situation, the political situation that is, that these refugees are not going anywhere anytime soon unless they're driven back into the ocean. And so this year we feel very much that God will call us to go there during the months of January and February for two reasons. January and February can be slow for us in Romania. There's not so much happening in the gypsy villages, constructions, gospel. A lot of them come into the town anyways. The other one is January and February are brutal killer months for these refugees in Belgrade. Now, one of the things to understand about these refugees, these aren't the refugees that are in camps. These are single men and boys who, for some reason or other, whether they were separated from their families, trying to get where they're going, lost in the Mediterranean, whether their families sent the boys on ahead, whether their families died through the trek, or whether they left on their own. But because being single males, no matter their age, they will not let them into camps because they think they could be subversive. So they are living in sewers, warehouses, whatever they can scrape together to make a shelter. And where we are and in Belgrade, in January and February, it gets minus 30. And so many of them are freezing to death. Young boys are selling their bodies to make enough money to get a loaf of bread. And the police will watch them as they try to cross the ice, and when the ice breaks and they drown, they do not try to rescue them. They just line up and watch them. So this is very common. And so one of the messages I think God sent us today was we have a girl that we got to know that is in there working with them. And she said a thing is, if you're willing to come for over a month, you can get subsidized apartments. So that's a good, so we do believe we will go for January and February and work with this. And going not just for the humanitarian side is, these are the people that we are working with that are trying to show these people Jesus. And they want to show them Jesus. They want to show them the hands, the feet, and the face of Jesus. And by letting them starve and by turning them away, we're not showing them Jesus. We're showing them evil. And so being in there, whatever help we can. And one of the advantages of not being in a camp, we have free reign to preach the gospel. When you're in a camp, sometimes there can be strictures if it's a humanitarian camp. But when you're in the streets and working in with them, there's no restrictions of telling them about Jesus. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity. And they're looking for Jesus. They're fleeing people, their own religion and their own country that is trying to kill them. And when they show them that there are foreigners with Jesus that loves them, that's an eye-opener. So we're very excited about this opportunity coming up. And so that's continued to have that in our prayer. And there, just to finish off, there is a little girl. If we could flick through the photos, I'm trying to find a little girl that's collecting. This is in Seleush, a town we work a lot with. It's about 20 minutes from us. This is them getting the illegal firewood, because they're not allowed to collect it actually, but they do. It's either that or not have anything to cook or freeze. Okay, there's a little girl I'm looking for. She's buried in there, but that's not the picture I want. No, keep going. Keep going. No, that's not. Maybe we passed her. Did you notice? Because this is a kind of a funny story, and I can tell you how cruel Velda is. There. Now this is a village too that has 10-year-old mothers. So that's not uncommon. And by 14 they have 2, sometimes 3 children. This little girl, our first year out to Seleush, Velda decided to befriend her. So she wasn't taken to Velda too well, so Velda would move closer to her and she'd make poses and Velda would make the poses. So she was getting a little more angrier all the time. Well, by the end of the day, before we were leaving that village, she's throwing rocks at Velda. So anyway, so anytime we ever went...
It was a loving throw.
Yeah. So anyways, anytime we went to that village, we went there quite a few times, that girl would not come near us. She would not smile. All the other kids would flock for a picture. No way. She would go out of her way to get a picture. She wouldn't have any. And by guilt by association, I became the enemy too.
But she would be aware, like she made sure that we knew she was there and ignoring us, so it wasn't a out hate.
So this year when we went back, I was out. Velda wasn't with me. Gary, a British man, and I went out. We were assessing some houses, and she was there, and she seen me, and no way would she have anything to do with me. No way. She remembered me, and so that was fine. And then the next time Velda came out too, and nothing. And then
all the other kids, they'd be going, posa, like take my picture, and I'd say, not until she turns around so I can get her picture too. She would not. She'd bury herself. They're all trying to pull her around so that she has to look at me.
So we were, another day then, I think Velda just needed not to be there for me to fix things. But another day, we were doing a youth program, and they have a Bible youth program, and there'd be 200 kids in this building. It's just unbelievable. And Hordu, who is Roma, he's Gypsy, just a wonderful man that's on fire for God. And he was doing the children's program. So he had me and another fellow from Northern Ireland. We were on each side of the room, and he was doing a story. And one of the things was we were to watch who was paying the closest attention to him telling the story. And this little girl was out front, and I wasn't doing the political thing or anything. I was watching. I really was watching. She was on my side of the room, and she never took her eyes off of him telling that story. And so one of the things was we had this candy, and whoever was on our side of the room that paid the most attention was to get the candy. So I just watched them all, and I could see her, and like I say, the other ones were here trying to signal me to give the candy and that, but she just stayed glued. So I just walked over, never even looked at her, handed her the candy, stepped back. So after the thing was over, we were all outside, and I was talking to an old gypsy woman, or trying to talk, and all I felt was a thump like this, and I looked down, and she had her whole body wrapped around me, and and I just said, "Mulțumesc," which means thank you, and she said, "Cu plăcere," which means you're welcome, or with much pleasure, and she had the biggest grin. So after that, I could take a picture whenever I wanted. And by grace by association, when Velda came out the next time, she actually liked Velda too. So, but it's just how simple little things can change somebody's heart. And that's what we're trying to do with the adults in these villages, because we can say concentrate on the children and try for the next generation. But these children, we can teach them all about Jesus, and we can teach, which we will and do, but then we send them home to be raped, to be molested, to be beat. So what is that? Where's Jesus there? So we concentrate on the adults and try to redeem them with the Word of God. So when we're teaching their children about Jesus, they're going home to people who have learned about Jesus. And this year in Seleush, the first time I got there, I said to a guy standing beside me, I said, there is like a ray of light here. The year before, it just felt such darkness, an oppressive darkness. And then another man that came a couple of days later from Northern Ireland said, it seems so much brighter here. And so God is working in there. Things are changing. Not everywhere. Other places have very much closed down, but in this town, light is starting to shine, and I think that has encouraged every one of the people that have been working with them, because, like I say, the horrific things that they see and deal with every day is traumatic, and that's what we go home from. And so we always need the prayers. And I know when we get into working with these refugees, we're going to be broken. And if we don't have prayers coming from you fellas, it might crush us. So just the importance and how we feel the importance of people praying for us is just so key. And it doesn't discourage me from wanting me to do it, because God said nothing is going to be easy. You carry a cross and you take a cross to people. So we're prepared to do that, but we need you to lift us up. We need messages of encouragement. We need people to know that if this is our church family, that you actually care about us. Because when we don't hear anything, we don't know what to think. And communication is so easy today. We can like something on Facebook because somebody posted a video of a cat. But like I say, we feel drugged down when we just don't have. We're not looking for glory. We're just looking for, we're praying for you. We're lifting you up. We need to hear that. And we know that there are people in Romania right now that are lifting us up in prayer. And so when we go back, I pray that you fellas will too, because we need it so much. That is more key than anything else. We are dealing and fighting with a dragon, and we need a shield. And speaking of that, will you pray with us? Heavenly God, we just thank you, Father, that because of your armor, God, that we can walk out these doors, Father, and we can fight the dragon. We just pray, Father, that God, that as we go into this world, whether it be our neighbors, whether it be the town across the road, whether it be Charlottetown, whether it be Toronto, whether it be Alberta, whether it be China, whether it be Romania, with God, we boldly go with your word. We go, Father, not just with your word of truth, but your word of love, knowing, God, that this is not just about building houses or giving food, Father, but eternity. That your word is life, your Son Jesus is the life giver. And then, Father, unless we're willing to take that Son to them, they will die in their sins. They will spend eternity separated from you, Father. And that is a fate worse than death. And God, just lift up those that are daily, Father, going in and out of situations that break the heart. But they do it, Father, because they know it breaks your heart. And Father, just encouragement for them, courage, strength, boldness, love, and mercy, Father. And a blessing upon each and every one here, Father, that God, they call on the name of your Son, Jesus, that, Father, they love you and love the saints. And God, just to bless them with courage. In the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.